Hello and welcome. I'm George Coll to part 2 of Sunlit River. And this reference, I want to thank my good friend Lise for lending this to us. And this is really, really great. So today was Balance Day. But before you get into making the blues bluer or the lights lighter, darks darker, take a look at any shapes that were wrong. And what I found is I needed to lower my river here and kind of cut into the bank a little bit. So those were shape changes, and get those done first. All right, so with that, keep painting. Get in front of a canvas, paint with your friends, get outside when the weather's nice, and paint from nature. All right, with that, let's get started with part 2. All right, thanks for your bravery for hanging in here with me. This is a great painting. Oh boy, here we are at part 2 of Sunlit River. And it's so important when you get back to look at the painting to say, what's not looking right? And I always, excuse me for being in front of the camera, my computer over here is acting funny. All right, so I got a fresh look here and a few minutes ago, and I lowered this river about 3/8 of an inch and put some darks in on either side. So that's where I started this morning, but said I'd better stop doing that and get on tape so I don't get too far ahead of you. But what I want to say, if you see something that is shape isn't right, go ahead and change that first. That's always the important thing. Get shapes out of the way first, and then let's get into the major thing we want to do today, which is balance color values. Color values are nothing more than color and value mixtures and how they interplay with the surrounding colors. Well, let's look now at our sky. It's really kind of pale. And when you look at the reference, it's a lot richer. So let's start with enriching the blue sky. All right, so let's do that with some ultra. I'm sorry, this is titanium white, phthalo blue, and that is looking pretty good. Maybe a little tad too much. I'm adding more white to it. All right, let's get a little bit of terp in my brush to loosen it up from yesterday. Getting both sides really, really well done. And it looks like I've got a pretty soft, long, flat number 6 rosemary 279. And this gets the job done pretty quickly. Well, that's showing up, isn't it? And I'm going to try to make it a little bit more even. And we can soften the edges later. Oh, right. That made a big difference. Let's add a little bit of yellow to this. And add just a little bit of that to the horizon. I just kind of see that there on the horizon. Just lighten it up. Just a little bit more white too on that. And there we go. Oh, that's pretty. All right, that is a pretty color. And I'm going to use some of this later and put that off to the side. Let's get to the rest of the sky here. And it has kind of a little bit of a purple blue. So let's go cobalt and white. And add just a touch of alizarin to it. Oh, that's perfect. And I'm lightening one side of it. So I kind of have a dark and a light. Again, I still have the large brush. And I'm going to go with the conservative lighter stuff first. And lighten it even more. More white. There we go. It's the lighter stuff. And then with a little bit darker, which I see down in its lower area. And I see a lighter stuff in the upper areas up in here. And I'm going to thin it with just a little bit of terp or Gamsol and put that in. And I'm softening the edges. This is where this brush is so handy now. It just softens your edges a little bit. Let me get back and judge it. I think I need some richer, bluer stuff up in here. A little too much. Let me soften that. But that seems to do the trick there. Now, there's some pure white clouds, so I'm going to get some white out of here. Now, I have some contamination in the brush, so it's going to have a little bit of contamination. And I'm going to go back with this soft brush to those lighter areas that we had yesterday and dab them in. You see, I'm kind of twirling the brush to get paint off of all sides of it. And I think I need some over in here too. Okay, that's looking good. All right. Now, when you start getting these big areas in correctly to where it looks like it might be the right value balance, it's easier to start making judgments down here in these other areas. I'm wondering if I could find a smaller brush than the number 6 to get into the trees. Let me see what I got here. I got a number 3, 270. This looks like it's flared out, and that's okay. Let's get into some mixtures down below. So let's pick up this cloud design and move over into the trees. So what I'm going to do is mix some yellow into that pretty blue color we had with some nice warm color from the Hansa yellow, and start applying some of this to some of the canopies. That was a mistake, but look, that's working. I need some more yellow ochre in here. It's got to say yellow. And up in here, I'm going to get some dabs, just to really see how I really got an edge up on the top, right up in there. And I'm just mixing up some gray green, and I'm putting that up in this area here. There's kind of a bush in front of these cottonwoods over here. These would be the cottonwoods probably. And that is a nice color. Oh, that is nice. And I'll put some of that back in here too. And I'm just dabbing it in a few places. Whew, that's looking nice over here. I think I need to reestablish a dark right in here, a few of them. And I just had that little dark pile left over. And I'm going to put some of that in a few places. I don't know, these softer brushes can really pull the day here when you have these configuration of naked trees here, and there's a lot that they can do for us. Going back to some of these softer darks I have here and putting them in. Seems to be a lot over here on the right side. And I'm just adding some softness to the top of these big darks I have here. Oh, that's coming along nicely. And getting this mixture, I don't even know what it is anymore. It's kind of a green-gray. Let me get some cold gray out. I'm getting some more Remington 717 gray, cold gray, over on the palette. Just a little bit of that into these exotic colors I've been mixing, which is a Hansa yellow and some cobalt. Now I'm mixing in some of that yellow ochre. So just kind of scrub around and you'll come up with these nice little colors. It's not that I'm getting rid of all my worms here. I'm just dabbing over the top of them to try to give some semblance of what I'm seeing out there. I'm going to get into darks just a little bit more: ultra blue, brown, transparent oxide brown, ultra blue, and viridian. Really nasty darks. A little bit of cobalt now. There we go. And I need to get some of these darker smudges in the foreground. Just a little bit. Not much. Okay. Now when I look down, I see kind of a red rust color down in the, this area coming up from the darks. And I'm using some alizarin and some yellow ochre and some white. Good rust color. And I'm going to switch to a little bit smaller, softer brush. I better clean this one up. Hard to get my brush clean with that stuff in there. But now I'm doing Number 2, long flat 279. It's a nice series of brushes. And now you can see me putting these rust colors in here. And I need to get some upriver too. And down in here maybe. And I'll even spread the wealth a little bit in the trees. Be careful, this stuff is strong. And I'm going to put some on, I see some in the bases here. Woo! Strong stuff. And I think then it's going to be time to go back and work with some soft whites in some places. I've got this really nice fine brush, and I might even go smaller here in a minute, but let me see what I can do with putting some more snow back into the back here and having some snow design. So I'm going to get some white and some blue, one of my leftover piles, and that might be too big of a brush. Let me see. And I have kind of a shore here that needs to go out. You can see it in the reference. Oof, hoofka. And there's a lot of little details that I could really absorb myself in right now, but I want to try to keep the goal in line here, and that's to get some, show that there's some snow back in this tree area, because I'm looking at the reference and seeing that. I think I see some over in here too. And I'm kind of dabbling it through the back of this tree like it's showing through. See how I just dabbled that, and it seemed to show what some snow coming through. Yesterday I worked on my knife to get that shoreline in. I've overdone it there. And let's go back to getting these in. Okay. Whew. Let's get back and check the balance. Okay. It's looking pretty good. And I think I need some more whites in the sky now, since I'm working in the really, really light area now. But the brush can only go so far, and I'm going to go back to my knife. So I'm going to get my connoisseur knife out and emphasize some of these lights. And you see how that can really say what needs to be said. And I think the edges of these need to be lightened. And I'll come back and soften these edges with my brush. So let's go back with this great big number 6 and soften some of the edges. Oh, that's pretty. there was some contamination in there. So let's pick up the contamination with the knife. Gone. Let's go back now. Clean my brush, get the contamination out of there. Go back and lay some in here. Oh, that is pretty. Oh man. And let's go back with some phthalo blue and white. And just a touch of that old stuff we had from leftover from earlier. And let's bring in some sky holes now under the canopies. And see what we can do about that. I'm going to switch my brush over and whew, I think I should have done that with a smaller brush. So let me migrate over to that smaller brush now to do that. Clean this brush out pretty good. I depend on that brush a lot, so I want to clean it nicely. So I'm just mixing the lighter mixture here and getting some of this lighter stuff under the canopies. Now, it's a little choppy, I know that, but we can work on that. I think my canopies now, the upper canopies have to be darkened. So let me see what I can do here about darkening some of that stuff. What I got. So I have to go back to, I think, some yellow ochre now. I'm just throwing it in over here to the left where I had all that slop and see if that can be a little darker. Yeah, there it is. Just a tad. Just a tad. And now to go back to get some blue. This is the sky color, and I will re-emphasize that under the upper canopies. Whew, we made some progress today. Since we have that phthalo, let's add some of that Hansa yellow to it. And let's go in here and see what that does up into our river. Just trying to get some of this upper river. It's a little bit different than the lower color. But I will get some intensity, I hope, with some phthalo, some white, and see what that does over in here. That is showing some intensity. And let's go back with this other color I just made, and it's a little bit greener. I'm just looking at this reference, trying to figure that out myself. And soften this blue as it goes back. And I'm going to dry brush it now. I'm just dry brushing and bringing some of the darks and the lights together. And a little bit of more intensity right here, and a touch of yellow and white and blue right here. Let me see if I can do that with one stroke. All right, I may have overdone that. Let me see. All right. Where am I at with time? I think I'm doing pretty good on time. I have just a few minutes left. And let's just go with some yellow ochre and white and reinforce some of this stuff down in here. Just using the side of my brush. And I'll use some of that in here too. Whew, man. Okay, what I hope to do tomorrow is get into some tree limbs in there. So I'm going to have to use some really fine edge brushes and knives to do that. There's a few light ones in there. Let me see if it's too late to do some scraping, but let me see what I can do. I think that might help. Just a few scrapes. Okay, that's cheating, I know. But let's go back to just a few more darks and I will finish this. We have some honkin' darks down in here that really need to say something. And I think we need to let that fade in there a little bit. And I'm changing the shape of this river here, just a few places. And I need a good dark. Going back to my ultra brown and alizarin, and get some of these darks that I see coming out from the edge here. And now going back and softening some of it with that nice blue color. Kind of sticky in here. Let me just calm this down just a little bit. Okay. Just had too many colors going on at once. And it's kind of chaotic, so I thought I'd just bring it down a little bit to just run a dry brush over it. All right, I still think I need some work on the brightness in the river, but I'm out of time and we'll work on that tomorrow. All right, thanks for coming by for part 2. You're very brave to be doing this. All right, let's bring this one to a close. All right.